Good afternoon, Cedars. For those that don't know me, my name is Jacob Strecker. I'm the Director of Development here at the Cedars, and through a little collaboration between us and McPherson College, we are excited to bring our second installment of First Fridays with McPherson College here at the Cedars. Last week or last month, you got to meet Katie Hill, who was a partner in crime, and getting these set up. This week, you're going to meet the third leg of our group, Steve Gustafson. He's Director of Plan Giving for the college. So if you help me, we'll bring Steve up here and get this show rolling.
Thank you, Jake. Good afternoon and welcome to First Fridays at the Cedars. It's fantastic to see so many of you out on a cold, blustery Kansas day. I was just talking with our presenter and several of my colleagues. You know, you're just the opposite of college students. The first table to fill were those right up in front, and had this been college students, all the back seats would have been taken first. So you've learned something in your life experience. It is my privilege to introduce our presenter this afternoon, Dr. Bryan Midgley. As a former academic dean, one of my great joys is to see that someone I hired when I was in the dean's office grow into one of the faculty leaders and teachers on our campus. Dr. Midgley earned his undergraduate degree from Eastern Michigan University in psychology with a minor in music. Yay. Both his Master of Arts and Doctor of Philosophy degrees are from the University of Kansas. Bryan is listed in Who's Who in America and Who's Who Among American Teachers. Professor Midgley's research lies in the study of human conceptual behavior. I looked at his list of publications on his resume, and it goes for 2.5 pages. He has published widely and presented papers at a number of professional conferences. However, Dr. Midgley is especially passionate about the teaching and learning process at McPherson College. He is accessible and creative and wants students to succeed in his classroom. As a longtime colleague, I appreciate Bryan's collegiality, his service as chair of the Department of Behavioral Sciences, his leadership within the work of the faculty, and his commitment to teacher education. You are in for a treat this afternoon. I am intrigued by Bryan's topic, how a psychologist makes a sandwich. Be ready to be engaged, and please join me in welcoming Bryan Midgley.
As Steve said, I teach psychology at McPherson College, and I thought what I would do today is to do some of the activities that we do in the classroom. I try to make learning an active experience to get students involved. So if you're willing to play along and to kind of be students in my class for the next hour, we'll try some of these activities and see how they work. You'll let me know. The first activity is actually something that I need a volunteer for, and this is actually, I wouldn't ask you to do anything embarrassing or weird or anything like that. And it's got a little bit of a game show look to it. So what I have here are 3 envelopes. And one of these envelopes has something nice in it, money. The other 2 envelopes don't have anything in them, at least nothing nice. Just a piece of paper. And so what I need is someone who is willing to select one of these envelopes, and this will be his or her special envelope for the afternoon. And it's probably easier for me to move than for a whole group of people, so let me come over here. Okay, just a minute. Okay, so here's the deal. Now, what you can't do is you can't look at the time. I know that would make it really easy. That would be over. Yeah, it'd be over really fast. Okay, but you can, if you want to hold it or something like that, that's fine. You just can't open it once. You pick one. Something in them. I don't know which one it is, so if you're trying to read one,
and they all are open.
Yeah, they're all open.
Oh, well, I'll try.
Do you want to keep this one?
Yeah.
Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to not pulling anything here. I'm going to take your envelope and we put it someplace nice and obvious so we'll all see it. Sorry, I told you I'm not used to working with a microphone. I'll try to do better with that. All right, so we have your special envelope right here, and I have 2 left. So what I need to do for a moment is turn my back to you. I don't mean to be rude, but turn my back to you and look inside the envelopes. Okay, so you can talk amongst yourselves for a second. I'll be right with you.
He wants his head in the corner.
Yeah.
Well, he's looking at those envelopes, don't you think I should go up here?
Okay, I have the 2 original envelopes. Yours is still right there. All right, should be. So what I'm going to do is reveal the contents of one of these envelopes. See? Okay, no money, just a wadded up piece of paper taped to it. Okay, so this one goes in the trash. Okay, sorry, probably should have recycled that, but it's in the trash. All right, so we got 1 envelope up here, yours, and I have 1. Okay. So here's the question. If it's better to have money than to not have money, should our contestant keep... Okay, thank you, Ann. Call me Brian. Ann, do you want to stay with your choice? Do you want to switch envelopes with me? Or do you say, it doesn't really make any difference, it's kind of a 50-50 proposition? So what do you think personally? And then we'll open it up and we'll do like a phone a friend thing. We'll see if other people have ideas. Okay, your idea is to stick with what you have, not to trade with me. Okay. Why do you want to stay with your choice?
Well, I've decided that where I live, I don't need any more money anyway.
I don't think I've ever heard that answer before. Okay.
But I just figure, okay,
Okay. Let's put it to a vote. Let's be democratic about it. So what I'll write over here on the board, we'll give Ann some advice. Or see, I mean, you can choose to take it or not, but we'll see if we can get some advice for you.
I don't know how much a dollar bill or half a dollar bill, the difference in how it would feel in an envelope.
Right. Sorry. I've heard that, but yeah, I've never had the opportunity to test it. Yeah, and I was a little tricky, right? Because I put a wadded up piece of paper in it, and that was the whole point. I don't want to make it too easy, you know. All right, so let's see. Let's start with. You said you're going to stay, right? That you're going to stay with your choice. Okay, so let's start with that. Okay. Just by a show of hands, how many people think Ann should stay with her original choice? If her goal is to win the dollar, she seems rather ambivalent about that. But if her goal is to win it, you think she should stay. Okay, if you keep your hands up for a second, I'll get a count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Okay, it looks like 34. Hopefully I was reasonably accurate. Switch, yes. Let me make sure I spelled it right. How many people think Ann should trade envelopes with me? In other words, she should switch. We'll do the same thing. Show of hands, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, 9 it looks like. Thank you. Considerably fewer. Okay. Last choice is, doesn't make any difference. It's basically 50-50. So. Okay, how many people would say it really doesn't make any difference? It was just kind of the luck of the draw. 1, 2. Pardon me? You can only vote once, yeah. This is like an old Chicago election or something. Vote early, vote often. 3. Would you like to change your vote? Pardon me? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay, so now we've got some advice for Ann. Would this cause you to change your mind at all? Okay, and it looks like that's what most of the people here are recommending, right? Okay, so let's have the big unveiling. We'll open our envelopes at the same time and see what happens. Okay, just a minute. Let me get my envelope here, too. All right, congratulations. Yeah, of course. Yeah, you won it, you know. Oh, yes. That's right. There's always a downside. Now you have something extra to report on your income tax. That's right. What's interesting about this exercise is actually it works about 2/3 of the time, and in a sense, it didn't actually work today, which is okay because that's usually, I mean, again, that happens about 1/3 of the time. When you said you wanted to stay, was your idea again that you just sort of went with intuition, or why did you think staying was the right thing to do? Okay. It was easier. Some people say, well, there must have been some reason why you selected it. You know, you may not even have been aware of it, but there was some reason why it just seemed right to you. Maybe it looked a little different or felt a little bit heavier or a little bit lighter or something. Or you said it was just a lucky guess. Actually, the probability of getting this exercise right, if the goal is to win money, is not 50-50, even though it kind of looks that way at first. The probability of this actually working out is more like 2/3 versus 1/3. And about 2/3 of the time what happens is that switching is actually the best option. Now, we, in a sense, and I mean, your guess was a good one and a lucky one, and you stayed with it. But why is it 2/3 versus 1/3? That is, it was more likely that I had the winning envelope than that you had the winning envelope. But again, it was only 2/3 versus 1/3. Why is that, do you suppose? What's going on here? Well, some people are kind of going, yeah, that's it. What's the logic here? I had 2 envelopes, right? So when we started this, what was Ann's probability of getting the winning envelope? 1/3, right? 1 out of 3. So I by definition, I had to have had a 2/3 chance of having the right envelope. Well, it looks, that's the tricky part. That's the part that catches us, right? Because it looks like it's 50-50 where there's one here and there's one here, right? But what happened was I did something very particular with one of the envelopes. Right? I threw it away. And so basically what I did was I condensed my 2/3 chance into one envelope. So really, it was Anne had a third, I had 2/3. And so usually what happens, well, not usually, about 2/3 of the time, what happens is switching is actually the best option. But not always. It works about 1/3 of the time. I'm not so great either. The first time I came across this exercise, I swear I read it 20 times and going, what? Of course, it's 50-50. What do you mean it's not 50-50? The whole reason I use this, you can say, this doesn't sound a lot like psychology, is that when I teach, especially introduction to psychology, I get a lot of students who have never taken a psychology class before. They're maybe not going to take another psychology class ever again. It's just a general education course. And kind of the conception out there in the world about psychology is that it doesn't really have anything to do with science too much. You know, I mean, we all know Dr. Phil and things like this. And I think that's kind of the conception that people have of psychology. And the reason I do this exercise is simply to point out to students that our intuitions about why we behave the way we do are sometimes right, but they're also sometimes wrong. And our intuition, this is where the exercise fails though. In this case, our intuitions worked. The intuition of the group as a whole was that you should stay. And in this case, that actually worked. But mathematically, our intuitions would have led us basically in the wrong direction. And so that's really the whole point of the exercise is intuition about behavior can sometimes lead us to the wrong conclusions. And so it's sort of a lesson for introductory psychology students that data is important. And psychology at its best uses data and uses information to answer questions. And hopefully it's not just someone's intuition, even though, again, intuitions are sometimes right. Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you know what she was going to decide?
She has good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're gonna move from math, because you might be thinking, oh, math, I didn't sign up for this, and we're gonna go to something that will probably look a little more like what you're accustomed to psychology being. You've ever seen a movie with a psychologist in it, or a psychiatrist, or a social worker, you've probably at some point seen this person get out something that looks like ink blots. All right, you're familiar with these things.
Probably the safest thing is just to walk around and show you. I have if you haven't seen an ink blot before, you know what they are. They're not supposed to look like anything in particular. This one kind of does. Right, looks like a bat or something like that. Butterfly, maybe, right? Something with wings. Yeah, some of them are pretty. Some of them have colors to them. Some of them are gray, black, and white. Very interesting answer.
I'm sure it is.
Right. If you can, somebody said this looks kind of like a bass fiddle or a violin, some sort of instrument. Sometimes people think it looks like an animal hide. You know, got kind of a weird look to it. Yeah. So sometimes people see nice, beautiful images. Sometimes people see disturbing images. Sometimes people see two deer talking over a back fence. Whatever. We'll reserve judgment on that answer.
Find the one with the two deer talking.
I think this was the one. Is that right? See, as a therapist, that's what you're not supposed to do. You know, when the client says, "I see two deer talking across the back fence," you're not supposed to go, "What planet are you from?" Okay, so the point of these tests, again, this is referred to as something called the Rorschach ink blot test. And it's been around for many years, since about the mid-1800s. And the whole point of it, supposedly, is that what you see in these pictures says more about you than what's in the pictures, right? Because the pictures are ambiguous. They could be many different things. And so presumably what you see says something about you. I want to show you a different test, and this is one we're going to get more of your response to. Sorry, my handwriting is not very good, which is bad considering I spend a lot of my day drawing on chalkboards. People look at me and go, "What?" This says, if my handwriting is not so great, it says thematic apperception test, and that's kind of a little bit of a mouthful. So we usually just call it the TAT, and that's what this test is. We're going to take a look at. These are also ambiguous images, but they're less ambiguous than the ink blots. You could look at the ink blots and really, you know, it could be a cloud. These are pictures that most of them all have people in them, and they're usually kind of illustrations. The point of this test, it's also a kind of projective test. That is, it says something about you. The point of this test is for the client to tell a story about what's going on in the picture. And it's a brief story. So every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that's what I'm going to ask you guys to do. I'm going to hand out a couple of these to each table, and one of you will kind of play therapist, and one will play client. And the clients get to invent a brief little story about what's going on in the pictures. And the therapists get to say things like, "That's interesting. Tell me more." "You saw what? Two deer talking across a fence?" That's highly unusual. You're going to regret ever saying that, I know. And I'm going to milk that joke for all I can in the time that I have here. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll hand out a couple of these at each of the tables. And again, we have so many people here, which is nice. Probably want to work in teams, or two of you can be the therapist, or whatever. We're flexible. So let me hand out some of these. So again, the basic idea is kind of as a group to come up with a story. What is going on in these pictures? And again, every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So these are brief stories, a couple minutes maybe. And if you want to take notes, that's what the paper's for. If you want to take notes or scribble something down, that would be perfectly fine. Yes, if you don't like the choice you have, we have other pictures you can probably swap. Yep, a little brief story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay. If you're having nice, pleasant stories that you created, that's nice. If you're having disturbing stories, the kinds that Stephen King might write about up in Maine, that's okay too. Some of these pictures, I think, you look at them and it would be hard not to create a disturbing story. So we're more having fun with this than anything. So if anyone's sitting there going, oh my gosh, I need help, I need a therapist, I'm seeing really bad things, I wouldn't worry about it. Okay? So if I wouldn't mind, I know some people might not be terribly comfortable volunteering, so that's okay. I'm not going to volunteer anybody. But maybe if somebody wouldn't mind starting us off and who would like to tell us the story their group came up with. Would that be okay? Okay. So here, yeah, you guys picked this one, huh? Okay, this was the picture that was of a, well, depending on your story, somewhat of an adult nature. Yes, the other groups are wondering, why didn't we get that picture? That may be what their story is. Yeah, probably a big whoops. Yes, I didn't do this to shock or offend anybody. This is one of the photos, one of the pictures in this test, the TAT. So this table came up with some sort of a story, it sounds like. So what is going on in this photo, or this drawing?
We made an assumption that maybe the lady had died. And we made an assumption that the guy was either embarrassed or what have I done? And unknown and sorrow were part of what we expressed. What have I lost? And then looking at the books on the one observation was the books, like one of those might be a Bible, which is interesting. And how can the Bible help me in this situation? So we weren't quite sure, but those were some of our speculation.
Did you come up with a resolution in terms of how does this end?
How does the story end? We really didn't come to a resolution as a group. Yeah.
Yeah, that could be the ending for probably a lot of these. The police are knocking at the door. Right. Very good. Yes, yes, clearly you had nothing more than a few minutes, so it would be hard to create a novel out of this. But yeah, you have the right idea. Okay. Is there another group who has a story they'd be willing to share with us? Okay. Well, that's fine. If somebody has their own individual story they wouldn't mind telling, and I'll walk around with this so people get a look at it. Yeah, they're all interesting. They're all meant to, just like the ink blots are ambiguous pictures, they could mean many things. These pictures are also ambiguous. That's right. And actually, you are thinking like a therapist, because what a therapist would do is show a client all of these pictures and ask for a story, and then do that. Look for a theme. What's the common theme among all these stories? Abandonment, fear, anxiety. Okay. Yeah, right. Some of the pictures look very innocent because it could be almost anything. Okay. Not as interesting as the first one, maybe. Okay, so they're still working on their story, I think. Okay, so was this your story? Okay, you, sir. Oh, yours. Okay. So what is going on here? What is the story? Oh, I'm sorry. I keep forgetting that not everyone has a mic.
Well, the story is that the wife, this is a husband and wife, and the wife had a beloved pet, a kitten, and this kitten walked across a rotten plank and fell into a shaft. And it was down in the shaft, and the fire department had to be called to try to rescue the kitten. But they were unable to do it. The shaft was too deep, and they couldn't. The kitten perished, and the wife was feeling really grieved about that. And the husband saw the wife's grief and put his arms around her and comforted her and said, "I understand how badly you feel about your lost kitten." And eventually she got a new kitten, but not in this story.
Thank you. I was ready to cry, but there's a new cat, so that's good. Thank you for that happy ending. All right, I've got to volunteer you guys. This group, I mean, they've like connected everybody else's cards into one story. So let's see what you have over here. Sorry.
In keeping with the kitten theme, here's a mother telling a little girl, and it's okay, there are other kittens, and this one is just as sweet as the one we lost. And everything's going to be fine. Except that the young man says, no, you're wrong. You used to tell me that too, but it's never true. It's always sad when you lose a pet. And the father says, you're not into pets anymore. That's ridiculous. And while we're at it, we might as well talk about what you're going to do with your life. And you will notice that they're both frowning. They both look very unhappy. Okay? This one who said, you're not going to get the farm, he says, that's okay because I'm going to move back in your basement. And the youngest son hears that, and he climbs out the window. So he is escaping. He's tired of all the talk of cats and farms anyway.
As he grew up, he couldn't make up his mind. If he was a he or she, and his mother behind knows.
Would you like the mic?
Besides that, this little boy lost his cat, and he's out looking for it. And his parents don't know where he's at. He's walking on this bridge and doesn't know where he's going.
Oh, if this were a therapy session. Oh, you guys are too good at this. I think we have novelists in the room.
Well, this
Yes.
story has gotten long, but I'm still troubled with the point in the very beginning.
Yes.
How could a plank be that long? There you go. Well, you know how cats are curious.
I defer to the author on that. There you go. Cats are curious. I think we'll go with that. Okay. Last thing, and this is, and I'll collect these before we, in a minute. This last activity is completely different from the storytelling. This has to do with teaching. The kinds of classes I teach sometimes are things to do with like learning and conditioning. So how would you teach a pet to do something like a cat? And we don't have any cats, but we have a human volunteer. And so if, and Katie kind of agreed to volunteer earlier, so if she'd come up here. She is going to be our subject. I'd call her the lab rat, but that's not very polite, probably. So this is I like lab rats. Lab rats. Rat. I can't say it now. Lab rats. Thank you. Okay, so Katie's volunteering. What I need is someone who would be willing to be the teacher or the trainer in this. And then I'll explain how you do the teaching and training. Pardon? Oh, okay. what we have here is a little cricket, like a party favor. And if that was a reinforcer for you, that was good. This is the kind of thing you might use if you were working with an animal, for example. And if you had associated this with something like a goodie, like a treat, then the animal might try to work to get clicks. These are like little rewards. So this is what we're going to try. So our subject has been informed that clicks are good, that she's going to work for clicks. And one of you, a brave volunteer in here, is going to be the teacher, the deliverer of the clicks. And here's the tricky part. What we need to do is come up with some sort of an activity, some sort of a relatively simple behavior that we would like her to engage in, but she can't know what it is. Right, so we're going to ask her to leave the room in a second, and then we're going to come up with something that we want her to do, and then she'll come into the room, and the teacher will basically try to get her to engage in that behavior by using clicks. And so the idea is if she does something kind of like what we want, that gets a click. And if she does something a little more like what we want, that gets a click. It's sort of like the game of hot and cold. If you ever played that as a child, you're getting warmer, meaning you're getting closer to the behavior. And that's kind of what this is. It's actually a procedure known as shaping. So I'll ask you for the moment to step out, and we're going to come up with something. Not too hard, and again, not dangerous, not embarrassing, not humiliating. just something that she probably wouldn't typically do, that we think we could get her to do. That's kind of the spirit of it, right? Pour a glass of water. Sorry, I'm using the mic. Can you whisper into a mic? Does that make any sense at all? Well, we'll see. Yeah, that's sort of the difficulty we have, which is if the behavior is too hard, we might be here for a while trying to get it. Okay. Well, I think that's more in the spirit of it. Maybe something that wouldn't be too hard. Okay. Scratch her nose. Sit down on the floor. Do both. No. What do we? I like these ideas. I think they're doable. They're not too difficult. The water. Okay, let's give the water one a try. So that means no. Okay, how about the sit on the floor? Stand on one foot. Okay, now the person who's going and stand on one foot. And rubber belly. No. Pat, yeah, you guys are kind of rough. Of course. Let me see. What was the one we had the most agreement on? There was actually. Okay, let's go with that. We'll try that. Okay, now who's willing to be the teacher on this? This is actually a pretty hard job. I know students like you. You're the person who volunteers other people. One brave volunteer. Think of it as the game of hot and cold. Instead of saying you're getting warmer, you're just doing this when she gets closer. So she might come in, and she's obviously probably not going to be standing on one foot, right? She's not going to be doing that when she comes in, probably. But maybe she does something where she lifts her leg to, scratch her knee or something. And then you go, and you kind of capture that behavior. And then you just sort of go from there. Who wants to give it a try? I got to hold the microphone. You want me to do it? I'll do it. I probably will be the worst one in the room at doing it, but I'll give it a try. Make sure I got the right behavior. We changed it so many times. Standing on one foot, right? Okay. We're ready for you. Okay, so here's the idea. You kind of come up to the front. As a group, after much discussion, we've come up with a behavior that we assumed you wouldn't just normally do when you walked into the room. And what I'm going to try to do, using my 50-cent clicker, is see if I can get you to engage in that behavior. And I'm going to do it by trying to capture things that are more and more like the behavior. So it's like that game of hot and cold. So if you do something where you're kind of closer to that behavior, that's like, yeah, you're getting warmer. And when I kind of ignore you and don't do anything, that's you're getting further and further off track. Yeah, well, that's a good idea. That was not part of the agreement. How about, yeah, that's, well, given what you're doing, that would work out. How about just in the middle? Is this okay? Yeah. Gives people the best view, I think. Okay, and I'll get where I can see you. So the only thing we really need from you is just some behavior. That is, if you stand there and don't do anything, there's nothing to work with. Impressive, but yeah. Well, you would have been right if we hadn't changed our mind. I'm not sure how to count that one. Go ahead, you're doing great. I know this is frustrating. I found myself clicking slowly as your behavior slowed down. I think I told you I wasn't very good at this. What we were trying to do is get you to stand on one foot. And at times you were so close when you were moving so slowly. It was like, yes, stop. Don't step down. Step down. All right, nicely done. Okay. I've run out of my bag of tricks. My bag is literally empty. But in your honor, I brought a bag that has the face of a well-known psychologist on it. This is my B.F. Skinner bag. I know. I'm glad you asked me. I know. I'm glad you asked me that question. And if you're sitting there going, where's the sandwich? I'm really disappointed and kind of ticked off there's no sandwich. Back, I guess it was probably a month ago, when people were saying, yeah, this sounds like fun, I'd love to do this. And of course, I had no idea what I was going to do. And someone says, Katie, I need a title. Have you ever been in that position before? And so I just came up with something that sounded like, that'll be fun. And I'm certain I can think of something involving sandwiches. It didn't happen. So I do apologize if you came here thinking, wow, what could be more exciting than finding out how a psychologist makes a sandwich and then there's no sandwich. There's a psychologist, but there's no sandwich. I apologize. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello. We had someone ask if Bryan could tell everyone how long he's taught at the college and what courses he's teaching. So he's gonna tell everyone that real quick.
Well, as Steve said, he was one of the people who hired me. So this was when Steve was the dean at the college. And so I've been at McPherson College since 2000, so 13 years. And I teach about half of the psychology classes, and my colleague, Professor Heritados, teaches the other half. I'm kind of the science, basic research side of the discipline, and he's kind of the counseling therapy side of the discipline. So I teach several, 8 or 9 different courses. Actually, yeah, I teach a stats class, so you can bet that's popular. People love stats. Thank you again.